The black SUV eased into the driveway with its engine purring low, a machine built to whisper wealth and security. Beverly Hills was still and hushed, palm trees standing like silent guardians under the late evening sky. Victoria Hayes leaned back against the cool leather, her phone buzzing with unanswered emails, her mind already shifting toward the calls she'd have to make in the morning. She had only been gone a week. Tokyo, meetings, contracts worth billions. But in her world, 7 days felt like a lifetime. The garage door rattled shut behind her. For most people, that sound meant safety. For Victoria, it was usually a relief. Tonight, it carried something different, an edge, a faint vibration in her chest she couldn't quite name. And then she heard it. At first, she thought it was the creak of the wind against the fence, but no, it was softer, thinner. A child's voice. Barely audible. Almost like a whimper. She froze. Victoria Hayes wasn't a woman who froze. She was the kind of person who made boardrooms tremble with a raised eyebrow, who negotiated with steel in her voice and fire in her eyes. But that sound pierced through her armor. Without waiting for the driver to cut the engine, she pushed the door open and stepped into the evening air, her heels clicking against the stone. The cry came again, fragile, desperate. Her pulse quickened as she moved toward the backyard, a storm of unease building in her chest. She rounded the corner, and what she saw made her body seize like she had walked straight into a nightmare. On the ground by the iron fence, knees pressed into the dirt, was a small girl. Her dress, one of the pale blue designer ones Victoria herself had bought not long ago, hung loosely on her frame as if it belonged to someone else. The girl's hand, trembling and thin, stretched through the bars toward an old lunchbox, and across from her, on the other side of the fence, stood Mrs. Rosa, the neighbor's maid. Tears streaked down the woman's lined face as she held the box close to her chest. "Please, Mrs. Rosa," the child pleaded, her voice fragile as glass. "Just a little piece of bread. I promise I won't tell Diana." Victoria's breath caught. Her world tilted. That child? That voice, Emma. The words slipped from her throat, strangled, almost broken. Her daughter's head turned slowly, movements sluggish as if weighted with disbelief. And then those eyes, once bright, mischievous, alive, looked up at her, wide and hollow now, set deep in a face that no longer looked like the one she had kissed goodnight only a week ago. Her cheeks were sunken, her lips pale, the ribs beneath her blouse pushed against her skin like cruel reminders of neglect. Victoria staggered forward. Her legs wanted to sprint, but her mind couldn't process the sight fast enough. Emma's hand dropped from the fence. For a second she didn't move at all. Then her lips trembled and her voice, so faint, so small, broke the air. "Did Mommy really come back?" she whispered. "Or am I dreaming again?" The words shattered something inside Victoria. This wasn't just hunger. This was despair. Her daughter had been left so alone, so lost, that she had begun to dream of her return. Victoria dropped to her knees, the gravel biting through her silk dress. But she didn't care. She reached for Emma, scooping her frail body into her arms. The child weighed nothing, lighter than she had any right to be. She smelled of sweat, dirt, and days without care. Tears blurred Victoria's vision, but her voice came out steady, fierce, trembling with a mix of rage and love. "It's not a dream, my baby. Mommy's here now. I swear to you, I am here." Emma's eyelids fluttered as though she still didn't dare believe. And Victoria, holding her fragile daughter in the fading light, realized the unthinkable. While she was across the ocean closing billion-dollar deals, her little girl had been fighting for scraps of bread. And in that moment, for the first time in her life, Victoria Hayes, one of the richest, most powerful women in America, felt utterly powerless. But only for a moment. Because the woman who could bend empires with her will had just found a new battle. And this one wasn't about contracts or power or wealth. This one was about Emma. And whoever had done this to her daughter would soon learn they had chosen the wrong mother to betray. The ambulance lights painted the night in frantic flashes of red and white. But to Victoria, the world felt muffled, suspended in slow motion. She sat rigid in the back seat of the vehicle, clutching Emma's tiny hand as paramedics worked swiftly around her. Every time she looked down, she caught another detail she had missed before. Purple shadows beneath her daughter's eyes, cracked lips, the way her ribs moved beneath each shallow breath. It didn't seem possible that this was her Emma, the same little girl who once ran down the mansion hallways giggling with ribbons in her hair. Victoria swallowed hard, forcing back the scream that clawed its way up her throat. She could not break, not here. Emma needed her steady, needed her fierce. So instead she whispered softly, brushing strands of tangled hair from the child's damp forehead. "Hold on, baby. Mommy's right here. I'm not leaving you. Not again." When they arrived at the hospital, Emma was wheeled into a pediatric unit. The sterile lights were merciless, revealing every cruel angle of her malnourished body. Victoria followed like a shadow, refusing to let go of her hand, though the doctors urged her to step aside. It was only when she felt a gentle tug on her arm that she turned and realized Mrs. Rosa had followed too, standing uncertainly in the doorway, wringing her weathered hands. Her eyes shone with guilt as she whispered, "Senora Hayes, I am so sorry. I should have called you sooner. I thought maybe Diana was telling the truth, that you did not want to be disturbed." The words struck like knives. For a moment, Victoria couldn't breathe. She pressed her hand against the cold wall of the corridor, her mind racing back through the last 6 months. The endless meetings, the video calls where Emma had seemed distracted, tired, but Diana always had a reason. Too much playtime, a growth spurt, a long day. Victoria had believed it. Believed because she wanted to. Because facing the truth, that she had abandoned her daughter in grief after Marcus's death, was too unbearable. Rosa's voice broke through her thoughts, trembling. "I tried to sneak her food. I gave her soup one day, but Diana, she threatened me. Said she would tell the senora you'd fire me, call immigration. I was afraid. Dios mío, I was afraid." Victoria's stomach clenched. Shame and rage collided inside her, boiling hot. She had spent her life outmaneuvering the most cutthroat executives in the world, yet under her very roof, a predator had been poisoning her daughter while she signed contracts oceans away. Emma stirred faintly in the hospital bed, pulling Victoria back from the storm of her thoughts. Her lips parted, dry and cracked. "Mommy." Victoria leaned close. "Yes, baby, I'm here," she said. Emma's voice was barely audible, but the words sank like stones. "She said you left forever. That no one wants a girl who cries." Her heart shattered. Victoria pressed her forehead gently against Emma's tiny hand, a tear slipping down her cheek. "That's not true, not ever. You are my everything, Emma. My everything." Emma blinked weakly, as if caught between hope and fear, and whispered, "Then why didn't you come back?" The question was a blade she couldn't dodge. Her throat tightened, but she forced herself to answer. "Because I was weak. Because I thought burying myself in work would take away the pain. But I see now. I see what I did. And I promise you, baby, never again. Never." Mrs. Rosa stepped further into the room, her voice breaking. "Senora, there's more you need to know. For days I've seen strange men going in and out of your house when you weren't there. And always Diana with her phone, speaking a language I couldn't understand. It wasn't right." Victoria's head snapped toward her, the blood rushing in her ears. Strange men. Another phone. Her pulse spiked with a dread deeper than anything she had yet felt. She turned back to Emma, stroking her fragile arm. "Sweetheart, did Diana ever say why those men came?" Emma hesitated, fear clouding her hollow eyes. Then she whispered, She said they take the pretty things, and that if I was quiet, maybe one day I'd go too." The room seemed to close in around Victoria. The beeping of the monitors grew louder, sharper, like alarms. Every instinct screamed at her. This wasn't just neglect. This was something else. Something calculated, her grief, her guilt, her fury. Everything condensed into one crystal-clear thought. Diana Montenegro hadn't just failed her daughter. She had hunted her, and Victoria Hayes, billionaire widow mother, was going to make her regret ever stepping foot in this house. The hospital room hummed with the low thrum of machines, a sound Victoria would never forget for as long as she lived. She sat at Emma's bedside, her daughter's frail hand curled inside her own, the skin cool and paper-thin. The doctors had just finished their initial assessments, and now one of them, a tall man with tired eyes and a clipboard clutched too tightly, stepped forward. His expression was carefully composed, but his voice carried the weight of something no parent should have to hear. "Mrs. Hayes," he began softly, "your daughter is severely malnourished. She hasn't received adequate nutrition for weeks, possibly months. Her blood work indicates dehydration and vitamin deficiencies. More troubling, there are traces of sedatives in her system. Strong ones. Not something you'd give a child for any legitimate reason. Victoria felt her breath catch, her body tightening as if she'd been struck across the chest. Sedatives? She repeated, her voice sharp, trembling with disbelief. The doctor nodded. Low doses but consistent, enough to keep her lethargic pliant. She's lucky her organs weren't more severely damaged. He paused, lowering his voice. I have to ask, did you authorize any kind of medication for Emma? No. The word ripped out of her throat. Never, God, no. I trusted her caretaker. I thought she was safe. Her voice cracked, and for a moment she had to press a hand to her forehead, steadying herself against the tidal wave of shame. The doctor's expression softened. What matters now is that she's here, and we'll do everything to stabilize her. But Mrs. Hayes, this wasn't an accident. This child has been systematically abused, the words burned. They weren't just medical observations, they were an indictment. A judgment, and every syllable sliced into her like a blade. Emma stirred beside her, a small whimper escaping her lips. Victoria bent close, brushing her cheek with trembling fingers. I'm here, baby. Mommy's here. Emma's eyes fluttered open, heavy with exhaustion. She looked at the IV line taped to her arm, the machines, the cold white walls, and then, with a faint shiver in her voice, she whispered, Don't let her come back, please, don't let Diana find me here. The plea hollowed Victoria out. She cradled Emma's face gently in her hands. She'll never touch you again. Do you hear me? Never. Emma's lips quivered. She told me if I said anything, she'd lock me in the dark forever. She said you'd never believe me. Victoria felt her entire body ignite. Fury surged through her veins, raw and unrelenting. She kissed her daughter's forehead, holding her so close she could feel every fragile heartbeat. She lied, Emma, I believe you. I believe every word. Behind her, Mrs. Rosa stepped forward, clutching the straps of her worn apron. Her voice was unsteady but determined. Senora Hayes, forgive me, but there is something you must know. Many nights I saw Diana speaking on another phone, never the one she showed you. She always went outside, whispering in Spanish, making plans. I couldn't hear all of it, but I heard numbers. And once she said your daughter's name. Victoria turned slowly, her eyes narrowing. My daughter's name? Rosa nodded, her face pale. See, she said, the girl is getting weaker. Soon. That is what I heard. For a moment, the hospital walls seemed to close in around her. Sedatives. Strange men in the house. A secret phone. And now this. The picture was no longer just one of neglect, it was a pattern. Deliberate and sinister. Victoria rose from her chair, her heels clicking sharply against the tile floor. Her grief had hardened into something else now. Cold, focused resolve. She had spent her life conquering markets, dismantling competitors, wielding power like a weapon. But this was different. This wasn't about numbers or contracts. This was about her child. She turned back to Emma, brushing a stray lock of hair from her forehead. Rest, my love. Mommy has work to do. And for the first time in days, Emma's eyes closed without fear, her small hand still clinging to her mother's. Victoria straightened, her gaze steeled. Whatever Diana Montenegro thought she was playing at, whatever game she was running, she had chosen the wrong family. Victoria Hayes wasn't just a billionaire. She was a mother. And she was about to bring her entire empire crashing down on the woman who had dared to hurt her child. The mansion loomed in silence when Victoria's car rolled up the driveway hours later. Its marble facade, lit by soft golden lamps, had always seemed like a fortress. Unshakable. Impenetrable. Tonight it felt like a stage, hiding something rotten behind its grandeur. She told Daniel, her head of security, to wait in the car. No guards, she ordered. If she suspects, she'll cover her tracks. I need to see it for myself. The front door clicked open with her key. The house smelled faintly of roses and citrus candles. Diana's doing, no doubt, her attempt to maintain the illusion of order and care. But beneath it lingered something acrid, sour, like food left too long in the dark. Victoria's heels tapped softly against the polished marble floor as she moved deeper into the house, every nerve straining. The air carried a stillness that wasn't right. She passed through the hallway where Emma's laughter once rang, where Marcus used to scoop their daughter up and spin her in dizzy circles. The silence now was suffocating. Halfway down the corridor, a flicker of light bled through the crack beneath her bedroom door. Voices. A woman's laugh, her laugh, Victoria's. Jaw tightened. She pushed the door, opened just enough to see inside. Diana lounged across, the silk sheets of Victoria's own bed, draped in one of her gowns. The emerald one, Marcus had once said, made her look like royalty. A crystal glass of wine glimmered in her hand. Around her neck, the diamond pendant Marcus had given Victoria for their 10th anniversary sparkled beneath the lamplight. She angled her phone, snapping a selfie, pouting as if she owned it all. Victoria's nails dug into her palm. Every bone in her body screamed to storm in, to drag the woman out by her hair. But she forced herself to breathe, to watch, to gather proof. Then Diana spoke, her voice dripping with satisfaction. Soon, little Emma, just a little weaker, a little quieter, and no one will even notice when you disappear. Victoria's blood ran cold. She eased the door shut, heart hammering, and turned down the hall toward Emma's room. Her hands shook as she opened the door, bracing herself. The sight inside broke her. The bright, cheerful space she had designed for her daughter. Painted butterflies on the walls, shelves of picture books, the canopy bed draped in pink tulle, was gone. The mattress had been stripped away, replaced with a piece of cardboard laid flat on the floor. Stale crumbs littered the carpet. The air reeked of rot and neglect. On the walls, taped drawings, Emma's drawings, told the story Victoria had missed. Dark, frantic sketches of stick figures trapped behind bars, monsters with long arms looming over a tiny girl. One drawing made her knees buckle. A small figure curled in a corner, labeled in shaky letters, "Me." Victoria pressed a trembling hand to her mouth, tears burning her eyes. She spotted the baby monitor on the nightstand. But it wasn't a baby monitor. It was a camera. Lens pointed at the spot on the floor where Emma had been forced to sleep. Wires ran into a small device hidden beneath the bed frame. She pulled it out. A transmitter. Someone had been recording her daughter, broadcasting her pain. Her body went rigid. She scrolled through the camera's storage and nearly dropped it. Footage filled the screen. Emma sobbing, Emma begging for food, Emma being dragged by the wrist as Diana shoved her into the room. Each second seared itself into Victoria's mind. And then came the final blow. She fast-forwarded to the previous night. The feed showed Diana in the room, speaking into a phone, her voice calm and businesslike. 2 more months. She's almost ready. Widows never notice until it's too late. When the girl's completely broken, we'll deliver her. Price will double. She's perfect. Victoria staggered back, bile rising in her throat. Deliver her. Price. Perfect. This wasn't just cruelty. This was a transaction. Her grip tightened on the device. The rage inside her was volcanic, violent. She had fought to control it, to stay level-headed, but now, with the truth unspooling before her, control felt like a luxury she no longer cared to afford. She marched out of the room, her heels clicking like gunshots against the marble. Diana was still in her bedroom, sipping Marcus's wine and humming to herself, blissfully unaware that her mask had cracked wide open. Victoria stood outside the door, her hand closing into a fist around the camera. The trap was about to snap shut, and for the first time in her life, Victoria Hayes wanted blood. Victoria didn't sleep that night. She couldn't. She sat in the dim light of her study, the damning footage replaying on the tablet in front of her, each second more unbearable than the last. Emma's cries, Diana's voice smooth and venomous, treating her daughter's suffering like merchandise on a shelf. Every time Victoria's hand trembled toward the pause button, rage flared hotter in her chest, refusing to let her look away. At 3:12 a.m., Daniel arrived. He was a man she trusted with her life, a former intelligence officer who had been at her side through corporate wars and private threats alike. Tonight, his broad shoulders filled the doorway of her study as he took in the look on her face. He didn't ask what was wrong. He simply said, "What do you need me to do?" Victoria pushed the tablet toward him. "Watch." He stood there silently, jaw tightening as the video played, his eyes darkening with each passing moment. When it ended, he set the device down with slow, deliberate care, as though afraid he'd crush it in his grip. "Who else has seen this?" "Only me," she whispered. "And Rosa, the neighbor's maid." She confirmed Diana's been using another phone, speaking in Spanish, arranging something. Daniel leaned forward, his voice low. "Then we start with the basics. Full background check on Diana Montenegro. Victoria shook her head. Her name isn't Diana Montenegro. She opened her laptop, her fingers flying across the keys. I ran what little I could find through the facial recognition system Marcus had installed in our security network. She's Veronica Salazar, 31, arrested twice in Mexico for fraud and identity theft. Charges disappeared both times, Daniel swore under his breath. She's using you as cover. The nanny role's just a costume. Victoria clicked another file open, her throat tightening. It's worse than that, look. On the screen, a series of names appeared. Women across the country, all using aliases. Different cities. Same pattern. They inserted themselves into the homes of wealthy widows. Women who had lost their husbands and were too vulnerable, too distracted to notice the rot being planted under their own roofs. And always there were children. Daniel, Victoria said, her voice a razor's edge. This isn't a nanny. It's a network. He scanned the files, his frown deepening. 12 women, spread across 4 states, coordinated. They're moving children like inventory. This is organized crime. Victoria's stomach churned. Images of Emma flashed in her mind, her small body curled on cardboard, whispering, "Did Mommy really come back?" The shame cut deep, but the fury burned deeper. This isn't just about Emma anymore, she said, her voice shaking but firm. How many other children are being broken the way she was? How many mothers don't even know? Daniel straightened, his tone sharpening into command. We need the police, FBI. The second we put this evidence in the right hands, this operation goes down. But Victoria's jaw locked. No, not yet. If we go too early, she'll wriggle free. Women like this, they've survived by being careful, by being protected. I want every name, every bank account, every accomplice. I want their entire world exposed before we strike. Daniel studied her for a long moment. That means baiting her, keeping her in play. Victoria's lips pressed into a thin line. Exactly. The room fell quiet, the only sound the faint ticking of the grandfather clock in the corner. Outside, the sky was paling with the first touch of dawn. Victoria stood, her silhouette framed by the window's glass. Her reflection looked back at her, a woman who had once measured her worth in contracts and empires. Now she measured it in the fragile breaths of her daughter lying in a hospital bed. She turned to Daniel, her eyes burning with a fire he had never seen before. Find me everything, Daniel. Every woman. Every connection, every account. And when the time comes, she paused, her voice thickening with fury. We won't just stop them. We'll bury them. Daniel gave a single nod. Consider it done. For the first time in her life, Victoria Hayes wasn't planning a corporate takeover. She was planning a war, and Veronica, had no idea that the woman she thought she had fooled was about to become her executioner. The morning light spilled through the tall windows of the Hayes mansion, but it brought no warmth. Victoria sat at the head of the long oak dining table, papers spread out before her like the pieces of a battlefield map. To her left sat Marcus Chun, her family attorney, his crisp suit immaculate despite the hour. To her right, Daniel scrolled through encrypted files on a secure laptop. And across from them, CNN's Jennifer Brooks leaned forward with a recorder in hand, her eyes bright with the thrill of a story that could shake the nation. Victoria's fingers drummed against the table. She had spent her life making decisions worth billions in boardrooms across the world, but this felt different, more dangerous, more personal. She thinks she has leverage over me, she said coldly. She believes I'm just another grieving widow, too blinded by guilt to see what's happening under my own roof. Jennifer lifted her chin. That arrogance could be her undoing. Daniel tapped a key, pulling up the latest findings. It's worse than we thought. This isn't just Diana or Veronica, as we now know. There are at least 12 women, all using different names. They follow the same script. Widow loses husband, grief sets in, they slide in as the savior nanny. Then comes the manipulation, the theft, the abuse. By the time the mothers realize, it's too late. Money gone. Children broken. Jennifer's face tightened. That's a national scandal waiting to explode. Marcus leaned forward, folding his hands. But if we go public too soon without airtight evidence, Veronica's lawyers will spin this. They'll claim Victoria abandoned her daughter, that she's trying to shift blame. We need her caught red-handed, confessing in real time. Victoria's lips curled into something that wasn't quite a smile. Then we give her what she wants. Daniel's eyes narrowed. You mean, bait her?
Yes, Victoria said, her tone sharp.
She asked for a raise, didn't she? 15,000 a month, or she'd go to the press with fabricated proof of my neglect. She thinks she has power, so I'll play along. I'll make her believe she's in complete control. Jennifer leaned closer, sensing the electricity in the air. And when she comes? Victoria's eyes flashed with steel. We'll have everything ready. Hidden cameras, investigators, the police waiting in the wings. And I want you there, Jennifer. Live coverage. America deserves to see exactly what this woman is, and how many families she's destroyed. For a moment, silence filled the room, heavy and taut. It wasn't just strategy anymore. It was theater. A trap designed not just to catch Veronica, but to annihilate her entire facade in front of the world. Daniel closed the laptop with finality. She'll walk in thinking she's the predator. She'll walk out in handcuffs. Victoria's gaze drifted to the window where the manicured gardens glistened with dew. Emma's laughter used to echo through those gardens. Now only silence lingered. That silence hardened her resolve. I've built empires by breaking men twice as ruthless as her, Victoria said softly, almost to herself. But this isn't business. This is personal. And I promise you all, when she realizes the trap, it'll be too late to run. Jennifer pressed the stop button on her recorder, her voice trembling with conviction. This will shock the country, Victoria, but more importantly, it will protect children who have no voice. Victoria met her eyes. Then let's make sure no one can ever silence them again. As the meeting ended, Daniel's phone buzzed. A message appeared on the encrypted screen. Diana. Good morning, Mrs. Hayes. I trust you're ready to discuss my raise today. After all, dealing with Emma requires extraordinary patience. Victoria read the message and for the first time in weeks allowed herself a real smile. Cold, calculated, deadly. Send her a reply, she said. Tell her I'm ready to talk. At 3 o'clock. Right here, the trap was set, the stage prepared. The countdown had begun, and Diana Montenegro, Veronica Salazar, was walking straight into the lion's den, completely unaware that the lion she thought she had caged was about to bare its teeth. At exactly 2:59 p.m., the heavy iron gates of the Hayes estate swung open. A sleek black sedan glided into the driveway, its tinted windows glinting under the California sun. Inside the mansion, the air was charged, every person in position like actors waiting for their cue. Hidden cameras were live, microphones tested, and in the adjacent control room, Jennifer Brooks' CNN team whispered into headsets, their feeds linked to a satellite truck parked discreetly down the street. Victoria stood in the grand living room, calm but electric, her pulse hammering beneath her still exterior. She wore a simple navy dress, her hair pulled into a sleek bun, elegant, authoritative, untouchable. To anyone watching, she looked every bit the billionaire CEO who had built an empire. But beneath that polished armor was a mother ready to strike. The front door opened. Diana, or Veronica, stepped inside, her heels clicking confidently on the marble. She wore one of Victoria's silk blouses, paired with designer pants that Victoria hadn't seen in weeks. Her hair was freshly styled, and she clutched her phone in one hand like a weapon, her thumb hovering as if she had a nuclear code she could unleash at any moment. Well, Mrs. Hayes, she purred, dropping her sunglasses onto the foyer table. I see you've finally come to your senses. Victoria gestured toward the couch with cool precision. Sit. Let's discuss your raise. Diana's lips curved into a satisfied smirk as she settled onto the couch, crossing her legs with exaggerated grace. You see, Emma is very difficult. Problematic, really. Without me, she'd be lost. You can't imagine the tantrums, the constant whining. The poor girl cries for you every night. But I've managed to tame her. It hasn't been easy. The word tame cut through Victoria like glass, but she didn't flinch. Her eyes flickered once toward the far wall where the hidden cameras blinked silently. Diana leaned forward, lowering her voice into a conspiratorial whisper. So here are my terms. 15,000 a month, untaxed, cash, or, well, let's just say the press would be very interested in knowing that the great Victoria Hayes left her daughter to rot. I've got pictures, videos, enough to bury you. Victoria tilted her head, her expression unreadable. Pictures? Diana's smile widened. Oh, yes. Emma crying, starving, scratching at the door like some little animal. Very compelling. Headlines write themselves, don't they? Billionaire CEO neglects daughter while jet-setting across the globe. You'll lose your company, your reputation. maybe even custody, unless, of course, you decide to play by my rules. For a long moment, silence hung heavy in the room. Diana thought she had won. She mistook Victoria's composure for surrender. And then, with one graceful motion, Victoria raised her hand. The living room exploded in light. Cameras clicked on. Microphones extended from the corners. Jennifer Brooks stepped forward with her crew, her voice steady as she addressed the camera. Good afternoon, America. What you are about to see is an exclusive look at the dismantling of a criminal network that has preyed on families for nearly a decade. Diana's eyes widened, her smirk faltering. What is this? She turned to Victoria, panic creeping into her voice. What cameras? Victoria stood tall, her presence radiating icy power. These cameras, Diana? Or should I call you Veronica Salazar? The name hit like a thunderclap. Diana's face drained of color. Behind Victoria, a massive screen lit up. Video footage rolled. Diana shoving stale bread into Emma's hands, locking the child in the darkened room, whispering venom into the phone. Rich widows are the easiest. So lost in their grief, they don't notice anything. The sound of her own voice echoed in the grand room. No, Diana stammered, standing abruptly. This is fake, edited, you can't. Stop. Victoria's voice was sharp as steel. She raised a hand again and the screen split into 6 windows. One by one, the faces of women appeared. Mothers from Seattle, San Francisco, Dallas, Miami, each one staring straight at Diana with righteous fury. You tortured my daughter, Catherine Morrison said, her voice trembling with rage. You left my son with pneumonia, another mother cried. You stole everything, a third accused. Their voices overlapped, their accusations hitting like hammer blows. Diana staggered back, her perfect posture collapsing under the weight of the truth. Detective Martinez stepped into the frame, badge flashing. Veronica Salazar, you are under arrest for child abuse, kidnapping, fraud, conspiracy, and multiple counts of exploitation. 2 officers advanced. Diana whirled, frantic, searching for an escape. You don't understand. I was protecting Emma. I was protecting all of them. These women, these rich, careless women, they deserve to suffer. Her voice cracked, desperation finally eclipsing arrogance. Victoria's eyes never left her. No, Diana. The only one who deserves to suffer is you. The officers grabbed her arms, snapping cold steel around her wrists. For the first time, Diana screamed, not with rage but with fear, and America watched it all live. The broadcast ignited like wildfire. Within minutes, the images of Veronica Salazar being dragged from Victoria Hayes' living room were everywhere. On television screens, phones, and social media feeds across the nation. Her carefully crafted mask of elegance had been ripped away for the world to see. No longer a poised nanny. No longer the one pulling strings, she was just a criminal handcuffed, shrieking, her lies collapsing under the weight of truth. But for Victoria, the true victory came not from the headlines. It came hours later in the quiet sterility of Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, when Emma stirred in her hospital bed. Mommy? The voice was weak, a whisper like wind through cracked glass. Victoria was at her side instantly, her hand cradling the small, fragile fingers that had once clutched stale bread in desperation. She leaned close, her voice breaking. I'm here, baby. Mommy's right here, and I'll never let you go again. Emma's eyes fluttered open, hazy and unsure. For a moment, she seemed to doubt what she saw. Her lips quivered. Did you really come back this time? Or am I still dreaming? The words stabbed deeper than any blade. Victoria bent down, pressing her forehead against her daughter's. Tears spilled freely, unrestrained. No dreams, my love, no dreams. Mommy's home for good. Emma's tiny arms, weak but determined, wrapped around her mother's neck. And in that moment, in that fragile embrace, Victoria Hayes vowed that every breath, every ounce of her being, would go toward protecting the child who had almost slipped through her fingers. The days that followed unfolded like a storm. Jennifer Brooks's exclusive exposed not just Veronica, but the entire network. 12 women, dozens of victims, children who had been silenced now found their voices, their mothers stepping forward with trembling strength. Congressmen demanded investigations. Nonprofits mobilized overnight. The Department of Justice launched a full-scale task force to dismantle the organization Veronica had been part of. And in the middle of the media hurricane stood Victoria, no longer just a billionaire CEO, but a mother who had refused to bow. who had chosen justice over silence. She spoke at a press conference a week later, her voice firm, unwavering. Emma sat beside her, a small bandage still wrapped around her wrist, but her eyes brighter than they had been in months. "I was blind," Victoria admitted to the world, her gaze steady on the cameras. "Blinded by grief, by work, by my own pride. And in that blindness, I almost lost my daughter. But what I discovered is bigger than my family. It's about every child who has been exploited, every mother who has been deceived. That ends today. Not just for Emma, for all of them." Her words shook with authenticity, and America listened. Months later, the Hayes mansion was different. Not quieter. Emma's laughter now rang through the halls once more, but warmer, filled with something that hadn't been there in years. Life. Victoria still ran her empire, but she no longer disappeared for weeks. Boardrooms could wait. Conferences could wait. Emma could not. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills and painted the sky in gold, Victoria and Emma sat together in the garden. Emma was eating strawberries, her favorite, the juice staining her small hands. She looked up at her mother with a mischievous smile. "Mommy?" "Yes, love." "Does this mean I get to pick the bedtime stories now?" Victoria laughed through tears. "Yes, sweetheart. Every single one." Emma giggled, snuggling into her mother's arms. For the first time in so long, Victoria felt whole. Not because of her wealth, not because of her victories, but because she had fought, bled, and triumphed for the only treasure that truly mattered, her daughter.